At the concert, I was shouting at the slim-waisted, long-legged female star on stage. "Miss, you're so beautiful. Show us your legs." Just as I finished speaking, my friend beside me covered my mouth. "This is a live broadcast. Aren't you afraid your wife will get jealous?" Facing his confusion, I was still winking at the female star, completely unfazed. "I don't have a wife. We're already divorced." "What?" My friend thought he misheard. "The 10th one." I curled my lips into a smile and shouted in his ear. "I said I divorced the richest woman." The moment I shouted that sentence, the entire venue suddenly fell silent. Everyone was staring behind me. As my friend frantically gestured, I finally sluggishly noticed something was off. A sense of panic rose in my chest. I subconsciously turned my head. Under the mottled lights, the woman slightly raised her head, her eyes red as she glared at me. She looked like she had gone mad, yet I felt surprised. In my previous life, I had a business marriage with Su Nyangsi, and we had a son and a daughter, but lived to 62 without ever being happy. All because Su Nyangsi had always held on to her first love from youth, Lu Zhao. Even more terrifying was, both children also liked Lu Zhao. While I was gradually pushed away, in my later years, I was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. Su Nyangsi, under the pretense of respect, left me alone in the old house. On my birthday, I tremblingly called my wife and children, only to learn they were accompanying Lu Zhao on a vacation in the Maldives. I wanted to cook myself a bowl of longevity noodles, but due to my failing memory, I forgot to turn off the stove. As the flames engulfed me, my only wish in my heart was that if there were a next life, I would never again waste my entire life for her. So after being reborn, the first thing I did was take the divorce agreement and go to find her white moonlight. "I want a divorce. Su Nyangsi is yours. The 2 children are yours too." Lu Zhao was stunned and looked at me in disbelief. I simply added calmly, "Since they all like you more, then I'll make it perfect for you. You just need to get Su Nyangsi to sign. When the cooling off period ends, I'll leave." He stared at the agreement for a long time, before finally taking it. "All right, but do you know how many men out there envy your position? Once I get something, I'll never give it up again." I smiled. "Don't worry. I will never regret it." Lu Zhao stood up and made a call to summon Su Nyangsi and the 2 children. Through the glass window, I saw Su Nyangsi walking into the cafe. With her long legs, the 6-year-old son, Song Yan, and the 4-year-old daughter, Song Zhuan, upon seeing Lu Zhao, rushed toward him, soft and eager, calling sweetly Uncle Zhao, their little faces rubbing against his arms. Su Nyangsi spoke gently. "What do you want to eat tonight? French or Chinese cuisine?" Lu Zhao pressed his lips into a smile and took out the divorce agreement from his bag. "Before that, there's a document I'd like you to look at." He flipped to the signature page. "I've taken a liking to a villa, but I don't have enough liquid funds right now. Can you sign this?" Su Nyangsi took the pen and signed without even looking at the contents. Why be so formal between us? My heart felt like it was being tightly gripped by an invisible hand, so suffocating and painful I could barely breathe. After the divorce agreement was signed, I stopped taking care of the household, no longer waking up at 5 a.m. to prepare a nutritious breakfast for the children, and no longer staying up late waiting for Su Nyangsi to come home from social events to cook her hangover soup when she came back. At first, no one seemed to notice, until Song Yan was late for school and got scolded by the teacher. Song Zhuan couldn't find her homework. Su Nyangsi's watch stopped ticking. The servants were in a panic, yet they could never meet the male master's standards. Dirty dishes piled up in the kitchen. Children's toys were scattered across the living room. The iron dresses were never neat enough. This once orderly home gradually became a mess. When Su Nyangsi pushed open the bedroom door, I was already sitting by the window reading. She stood at the door, her voice low. "How long are you going to keep this up?" I lifted my eyes to look at her. "I'm not making a scene." She stepped closer, the faint scent of cedar wood lingering in the air. "Then why aren't you taking care of the house? Are you still angry about last time?" I set the book aside. "I'm not angry. I just don't want to care anymore." Before I finished speaking, the door was suddenly pushed open. Song Yan and Song Zhuan rushed in, their little faces full of anger. Song Zhuan shouted sharply, "Dad is so lazy. We want Uncle Zhao to take care of us. Song Yin also shouted along. Uncle Zhao is more patient than you, more hardworking than you, and 10,000 times better than you. Su Niangxi's gaze stayed fixed on my face, as if waiting for me to give in. But I simply took a deep breath and said softly, since you all think he's good, then bring him here. I have no objections. The air instantly froze. Su Niangxi's expression darkened completely. After giving me one last look and seeing I was still unmoved, she turned and left with the children in big strides. That afternoon, my phone suddenly started vibrating wildly. Sir, the young master and young miss had an allergic reaction at school. The ambulance has just taken them to the hospital. When I rushed to the hospital, the two children had already been pushed into the emergency room. Su Niangxi stood in the corridor, her coat draped casually over her arm. Her voice was low, tinged with suppressed anger. Song Xin, what exactly are you doing? I was stunned. What? Su Niangxi stepped closer. They're allergic to mangoes. Don't you know that? Why did you let them drink mango juice? I looked straight into her eyes. It wasn't me. I would never buy mangoes for the house. Ever since the first time the kids were hospitalized after eating mangoes, I had been extremely careful, repeatedly reminding everyone that no one was allowed to give them mangoes. I even personally checked the school cafeteria menu. How could I possibly make such a basic mistake? Su Niangxi sneered. If it wasn't you, then who was it? I opened my mouth, just about to speak, when a nurse pushed the door open. The children are awake. In the ward, Song Yan and Song Zhuan lay pale on the beds. When they saw us come in, their eyes flickered. Su Niangxi asked in a deep voice, what happened? The two children exchanged a glance, then suddenly pointed at me at the same time. It was Dad. He bought pastries before that had mango in them. My whole body froze. I looked at them in disbelief. What did you say? Song Zhuan cried out with a trembling voice. It was Dad. He clearly knew we're allergic, and still gave it to us on purpose. Song Yin nodded vigorously. That's so bad. My fingers gripped the doorframe tightly, until they turned pale. Song Yan, Song Zhuan, do you even know what you're saying? You'd better tell the truth right now. Su Niangxi suddenly stood up and grabbed my wrist. Song Xian, is this how you act as a father? Not only hurting them, but also forcing them to lie. Do you even deserve to be their father? Song Zhuan started crying. Mom, we feel so uncomfortable. How can we feel better? Su Niangxi asked softly, her fingers gently wiping away her tears. Song Yin looked at me with red eyes. He's allergic to mango too. Make him drink mango juice too. Let him suffer as well. My heart turned ice cold. The chill in Su Niangxi's eyes made my whole body shiver. A bodyguard grabbed my chin, forcing my mouth open. Mango juice was poured into me. The sweet liquid choked into my airway. I started coughing violently. My throat burned with pain. Red rashes spread across my skin at a visible speed. My face began to swell. Breathing became more and more difficult. I clawed at my throat in pain, my blurred vision looking towards Su Niangxi. She just stood there watching coldly, with no intention of stopping it. The two children had already stopped crying, clapping excitedly. Serves him right, he should suffer too. Before darkness took over, the last thing I saw was Su Niangxi's cold gaze. I don't know how long passed. When I woke up on a hospital bed, my throat still burned with pain, and the allergic rash still lingered on my face. Familiar voices came from outside the ward. It was Lu Zhao and Niangxi. I really didn't know they were allergic. I just wanted to make them some juice. Su Niangxi's voice was unbelievably gentle. It's not your fault. You didn't know. If I had come earlier to explain things, you wouldn't have misunderstood. Mr. Song, his tone turned helpless. Yanyan, Zhuang Xuan, you two as well. This is all my fault. How could you protect me and push everything onto your father? The two children's aggrieved voices clearly rang out. Uncle Zhao, we know we were wrong. Song Zhuan sobbed as she spoke. We just don't like Dad. Song Yin echoed. Yeah, he's always controlling us, not letting us eat snacks, and making us go to bed on time. We want him to leave. My fingers gripped the bedsheet tightly, my knuckles turning white. These were the children I had sacrificed my life to care for. In this life, I will never repeat the same mistake. From now on, I will live only for myself. 3 days later was Song Yan's birthday. The banquet was held at the most luxurious hotel in the city center. I stood in a corner, watching Song Yan and Song Juan, holding Lu Zhao's hands on either side, like two cheerful little birds circling him. The two children clung to Lu Zhao the entire time, deliberately leaving me, their biological father, aside. Su Niangxi stood not far away, her gaze occasionally falling on Lu Zhao, with a tenderness I had never received. President Su is truly devoted. After all these years, the only one in her eyes is still Mr. Lu. Exactly. Even the children take after her. The guest whispers clearly reached my ears. I went to college with President Su and Mr. Lu, back when they were together. It was truly passionate. A well-dressed man lowered his voice. He almost proposed before graduation. No wonder, someone beside him realized. A first love is always a first love, even without the title of husband. He's still the most important person. I listened quietly, my heart wrapped in a thick layer of ice. Heavy, but no longer painful. I took a deep breath and turned toward the elevator. Just as the elevator doors were about to close, a hand suddenly reached in. Lu Zhao stepped in, his leather shoes tapping softly, with the corners of his lips slightly raised. The 30-day cooling-off period will be over soon. He looked straight into my eyes. You'll keep your promise and leave, right? I pressed the button for the first floor. Of course, I want to leave as soon as possible, more than anyone. Lu Zhao finally showed a satisfied smile. Don't worry, I'll take good care of this family for you. After all, Niangxi and the children don't like you. They'll slowly forget you. The elevator slowly descended. I didn't respond. Suddenly, with a loud bang, the elevator jolted violently and was plunged into darkness. Lu Zhao cried out in alarm, frantically pulling out his phone. Help! The elevator has malfunctioned. I slammed hard against the wall. A sharp pain shot through my forehead. Warm liquid ran down my face. After an unknown amount of time, noisy footsteps came from outside. Are the people inside all right? A rescuer's voice came through the elevator door. Lu Zhao banged on the door. Help us. My leg is stuck. The harsh sound of metal being pried open rang out. A blinding beam of light shone in. The rescuer leaned in to check the situation, his expression serious. President Su, both gentlemen's legs are trapped by the deformed door. But time is critical. We can only rescue one first. Who do you want us to save? Through my blurred vision, I saw Su Niangxi standing behind the rescuers, with the two children beside her, her gaze fixed on Lu Zhao. Without a moment of hesitation, save Zhao! Song Yan and Song Juan cried as they grabbed the rescuer's sleeve. Save Uncle Zhao first. Hurry, save him. The rescuer frowned. President Su, young master, young miss, the other gentleman is more seriously injured. We recommend saving him first. Su Niangxi's voice was ice cold. I said save Zhao. The rescuer let out a sigh. The rescuer could only reach out to pull Lu Zhao. I watched them carefully pull Lu Zhao out. As the elevator door lost half its support, the deformed metal slammed heavily onto my leg. A piercing pain shot through my entire body. The last thing I saw was Su Niangxi helping Lu Zhao leave, and the two children cheering excitedly. Darkness completely swallowed my consciousness. When I opened my eyes again, the smell of disinfectant filled my nose, and the steady beeping of the heart monitor rang in my ears. A doctor walked over and checked my pupils. You're awake. 3 ribs are broken. Luckily, you were sent to the hospital in time. Otherwise, you might have lost your life. I stared blankly at the ceiling as the final scene before the elevator accident flashed through my mind. Su Niangxi had chosen Lu Zhao without hesitation. And when the deformed door crashed toward me, she didn't even turn back to look once. I tried to move, but a sharp pain spread from my chest through my whole body. Strangely, I couldn't shed a single tear. Perhaps the pain was too overwhelming. Even my heart had gone numb. 3 days later, Su Niangxi came to pick me up from the hospital. She stood at the doorway, her gaze falling on my bandaged chest. After a long silence, she finally spoke. Zhao still needs to play the piano in the future. I can't let anything happen to his leg. I slowly raised my head to look at her. So, you had to wrong me instead? Her tone was calm, as if she were talking about the weather. You're a housewife. Even if you're not fully mobile, it won't affect much. I said nothing, but for the first time, I clearly saw the woman I had loved for half my life. I could no longer hold back. I was about to blurt out that I didn't want her anymore, when the phone suddenly rang, interrupting me. Su Nyangxi answered the call. Lu Zhao's gentle voice came through the receiver. Nyangxi, the kids and I are waiting for you at the restaurant. There's a surprise. Her expression softened instantly, and she quickly hung up the phone. Su Nyangxi's tone turned cold again. I have something to take care of. The driver is waiting downstairs. She turned and left. My fingers unconsciously dug into my palm, but in the end, I said nothing to stop her. Forget it. Soon enough, she would learn from Lu Zhao that the divorce agreement had taken effect. I don't want her anymore. And the 2 children who treated me like a stranger, I don't want them either. I pressed the call button. Wang Ma, help me send my luggage to the airport. An hour later, I deleted all of Su Nyangxi's contact information and left that black card in the drawer of the ward. When the plane took off, the clouds outside the window were dyed a brilliant golden red by the sunset. I gazed at the dazzling sky and closed my eyes with a smile. In this life, I will never compromise myself for anyone again. Those days of humbling myself for love, let them disappear forever into the vast sky with this plane. What awaits me ahead will be a brand new future that belongs only to me. I arrived in Yuncheng. This city was unfamiliar, yet it gave me a sense of security. On a quiet street in the old district, I opened a small bookstore called Experiment. The shop wasn't big, but it had great lighting. I spent 3 months renovating it, turning the once shabby space into a warm reading area. The wind chime at the door suddenly rang. Welcome. I instinctively turned around, but froze slightly when I saw who it was. The woman standing at the door had a striking figure holding a long black umbrella, raindrop sliding down from its surface. In her arms, she was holding a little girl about 5 or 6 years old. The girl had too small braids and was shyly shrinking into her arms. The woman put away her umbrella, her voice gentle. Do you have picture books suitable for her age? Only then did I clearly see her face. Her features were like a painting. Her long hair fell lazily over her shoulders. Her eyes carried a faint smile. I froze for a moment. Su Zhiwei, Senior? The woman was clearly startled as well. She looked me over carefully, then suddenly realized. Memory surged back like a tide. Su Zhiwei had been a standout figure in medical school, 2 years above me. Back then, she was known as a gifted talent. Not only excellent academically, but also an accomplished pianist. The dream goddess of countless boys. I smiled. What a coincidence. Then I pointed at the little girl in her arms. And this is... Su Zhiwei gently patted the girl's back. My niece, Tianian. Tianian, say hello to uncle. The little girl raised her head, revealing a delicate, doll-like face, and timidly said, Hello, uncle. Her voice soft like cotton candy. My heart softened instantly. I crouched down to her level. Hello. What kind of books would you like? Uncle can help you pick, okay? Tiantian blinked her big eyes, then suddenly reached out and gently touched my cheek. She whispered, Uncle is so handsome. Just like my daddy. The air instantly froze. Su Zhiwei's expression changed slightly. She crouched down and held Tiantian tighter. Sorry. Her father passed away a few years ago. My chest tightened, looking at the little girl who had lost her father. I suddenly thought of Song Yan and Song Zhuan. They still had Lu Zhao, but this child had nothing. I said softly, It's okay. Then I gently reached out and ruffled Tiantian's hair. Tianian, do you like fairy tales? Uncle has many beautiful picture books here. Tiantian nodded, her eyes lighting up. Over the next half hour, I patiently introduced various picture books to her. The little girl gradually relaxed, and even took the initiative to hold my hand, asking me to tell her stories. Su Zhiwei stood aside, watching the scene with gentle eyes. When I got to the little prince, Tianian had already leaned into my arms, listening intently. At checkout, Su Zhiwei said softly, Your way of telling stories is very special. Tianyan is usually very shy, but she's so close to you. I smiled and handed the wrapped books to Tianyan. I also feel very close to Tianyan. It would be nice if she were my daughter. The moment the words left my mouth, I regretted it, but Su Zhiwei only nodded thoughtfully. Without asking more, as they were leaving, Tianyan suddenly tugged at my sleeve and asked with her little face tilted up, "Can we come here often?" I crouched down and gently pinched her little nose. Of course. Uncle will always welcome you. Su Zhiwei held the umbrella and carried Tianyan into the rain. Tianyan leaned on her shoulder, waving toward the bookstore the whole time, until they disappeared at the corner. I stood at the doorway, watching their figures fade into the mist, a long-lost warmth rising in my heart. After that, Su Zhiwei and Tianyan became regulars at the bookstore. Almost every weekend, they would come and sit in the shop for an hour or two. Tianyan would always sit quietly on the small sofa in the corner, holding a picture book, completely absorbed. Su Zhiwei would choose a medical book and sit beside her, reading quietly. Sometimes I would brew them a pot of flower tea. Su Zhiwei would politely thank me every time, and Tianyan would sweetly say, "Thank you, uncle," then bury her head back in her book. One sunny Saturday, Su Zhiwei suggested taking Tianyan to the amusement park. Her eyes curved into a smile as she sincerely invited, "Why don't you come with us? Tianyan has been talking about going with you." I originally wanted to refuse, but seeing Qianshen's expectant eyes, my heart softened. The amusement park was bustling. Tianyan held Su Zhiwei's hand with her left and mine with her right, running around excitedly. We rode the carousel, the bumper cars, and even lined up together for the Ferris wheel. When the Ferris wheel reached the highest point, Tianyan suddenly pointed at the clouds in the distance. "My daddy lives there." My heart tightened. Su Zhiwei gently pulled Tianyan into her arms and said softly, "Your daddy is watching you from the sky. He hopes you can be happy every day." Tianyan nodded, then suddenly turned to me, "Uncle, can you be my new daddy?" The air froze instantly. I didn't know how to respond. Su Zhiwei quickly tried to smooth things over. "Tianyan, don't talk nonsense." Qianshen's little face turned red. "I'm not talking nonsense. I like Uncle. And Uncle likes Tianyan too, right?" Looking at the stubborn expression on her face, I suddenly thought of Song Yan. She was the same. Once she set her mind on something, she would stubbornly stick to it to the end. I said softly, "Of course Uncle likes Tianyan, but a father is one of a kind. No one can replace him." Tianyan nodded as if she half understood, then leaned back into Su Zhiwei's arms. On the way home, Tianyan sat in the back seat and fell asleep. Su Zhiwei drove, glancing at me from the rearview mirror from time to time. She said softly, "Thank you for being with her today. She hasn't been this happy in a long time." I shook my head. "I'm happy too." Outside the window, the sunset dyed the clouds a brilliant golden red. I subconsciously raised my hand to block the sunlight. My sleeve slipped down, revealing a scar on my wrist. Su Zhiwei's gaze lingered on that scar for a second, then quickly moved away. But for the rest of the drive, her brows remained slightly furrowed. A week later, Su Zhiwei came to the bookstore alone, holding a thermos in her hand. She handed it to me. "I made this myself. It's a calming tea. It might help your sleep a bit." I asked, "How did you know I don't sleep well?" Although I had already left that place, those past events seemed like something I could never forget. I don't know how many nights I had woken up from nightmares. Su Zhiwei's gaze was gentle and perceptive. "Did you forget? I'm a doctor. Actually, if there's anything bothering you, you can ask me for help. I think we can be considered good friends now. Right?" I subconsciously pulled down my sleeve to cover my wrist. Su Zhiwei quickly said, "Sorry, I shouldn't have asked too much. But as a doctor, and as a friend, I hope you take good care of yourself." I was silent for a moment, then finally smiled. "I understand. Thank you for the tea. If I really need help in the future, I'll definitely come to you. Don't worry." Sometimes she brought Tianyan with her. Sometimes she came alone. Every time she came, she would bring small gifts. or freshly prepared calming tea. I gradually got used to this kind of companionship, sometimes watching Sujue and Tianyan reading in the bookstore. I would feel a little dazed, as if this was the life I had always longed for. Simple, peaceful, and full of warmth. One rainy night, I was organizing the bookshelves when the doorbell suddenly rang. Sujue stood outside, soaked through, holding a feverish Tianyan in her arms. "Sorry to bother you so late. Tianyan kept insisting on seeing you. She said she could only fall asleep when you tell her stories." I quickly let them in. I took the burning hot Tianyan and felt my heart ache seeing her flushed face. Gently patting her back. "Uncle is here. Don't be afraid, Tianyan." That night, I stayed by her bedside, softly telling her stories. Sujue sat nearby, watching us with gentle eyes. When Tianyan finally fell asleep, the rain outside had stopped. Sujue said softly, "Thank you." I shook my head and was about to stand, but my legs had gone numb from sitting too long, and I nearly stumbled. Sujue quickly reached out to steady me. When I stood up, I realized we were standing a little too close. Both of us blushed silently, neither saying a word, and turned our heads away. After I had disappeared for a full month, Sunayangsi finally noticed something was wrong. She had thought I was just playing some push and pull game, but when she found she couldn't reach me at all, she began to take it seriously. She called my former friends, but all of them said they hadn't seen me. She hung up the phone impatiently. She turned and went to the study, opened the computer, and pulled up my bank account information. On the screen, the black card she had given me showed no change in balance. When I left, I had only taken my own savings, not touching a single cent from the Su family. She let out a cold laugh, quite some backbone. Then she shut down the computer, trying to make them turn back to look for me. Such childish tricks. They won't have any effect at all. The next morning at breakfast, Song Yan and Song Zhuan chattered about school. Lu Zhao gently served them food, occasionally looking up and smiling at Sunayangsi. The scene looked harmonious and perfect, but for some reason, Sunayangsi felt something was missing. Song Zhuan blinked her big eyes and asked Mom, "There's a parent-child sports day next week. Can you come with Uncle Zhao?" Sunayangsi answered instinctively, "Of course." Then she paused. "Who used to go with you before? Was it your dad?" Both children showed expressions of disgust. "It was him." Song Yan curled his lips, his face full of indifference. "But we didn't want him to come at all. He stays at home all day cooking and doing chores. He won't even go out. And he doesn't take care of his appearance. We really don't want him there." Song Zhuan chimed in, "Exactly. Uncle Zhao always dresses elegantly and looks handsome. All our classmates envy us." Lu Zhao smiled and poured a cup of coffee for Sunayangsi. "Nyangsi, try this. I specifically asked the servants to prepare it to your taste." Sunayangsi took a sip, her brows subtly furrowing. "It's too sweet." In the past, her coffee had always been ground by me. I would never make such a mistake. I remembered she drank coffee without sugar, only adding a spoonful of milk. Lu Zhao asked with concern, "What's wrong? Does it not suit your taste?" Sunayangsi put the cup down. In the end, she said nothing and only straightened her clothes. "I'm going to the company." In the days that followed, everything in the Su household seemed normal, but subtle changes were quietly taking place. Lu Zhao had never done housework. After trying a few times, he simply handed everything over to the household staff. Although everything at home seemed to be running fine, only Sunayangsi and the others keenly noticed that something had quietly changed. There were no longer the soft, comfortable, freshly ironed clothes, nor the glass of milk before bed, nor the carefully prepared meals tailored to everyone's taste. All of it had disappeared. Although life didn't present any major problems, the house no longer had that familiar warmth. Until one day, Sunayangsi attended a business banquet and returned home late at night. She staggered to the sofa and sat down, waving her hand. "You're done here. You can go." After the assistant left, the house fell into silence. Sunyangsi rubbed her temples tiredly and subconsciously called out, "Where is everyone?" Only after speaking did she suddenly realize that tonight, everything felt different from usual. There was no lamp left on for her, nor the small table. With a steaming bowl of hangover soup, she called the servants' quarters and asked sternly, "Wang Ma, didn't I say I had a social event tonight? Why wasn't anything prepared at home?" Soon, Wang Ma hurried into the living room and said nervously, "Sorry, Miss Su, everything for your return at night was always prepared by the master himself. So, we forgot to prepare it for you. And the hangover soup you mentioned, he would personally buy the ingredients and stay in the kitchen for hours to cook it. And never let us interfere. If you want to drink it, I can go figure out how to make it now." Sunyangsi's heart seemed to be struck by something, and a strange feeling rose within her. So those things had all been prepared by me bit by bit. Although she had always known I cared deeply about this home, she had never, until now, felt regret so clearly, and even a sense of owing me something. Sunyangsi stood in the middle of the kitchen. The cold reflection of the marble countertop mirrored her gloomy face. Wang Ma stood to the side. Not daring to make a sound, she asked hoarsely, "So all these 6 years, he's been silently doing all this, and never said a word?" Wang Ma nodded carefully. "The master never let us interfere. He said your stomach isn't good. The hangover soup outside is too harsh. He had to personally control the heat." Sunyangsi's fingers unconsciously tapped the counter. For a full 6 years, every time she came back from social events, no matter how late, there would always be a warm bowl of hangover soup on the table. She had never thought it was the result of me staying up late. The housekeeper asked tentatively, "Miss, should I try to?" Sunyangsi turned and walked toward the stairs. "No need, go rest." As she passed the master bedroom, she heard Lu Zhao's steady breathing. He turned over in his sleep, the silk sheets making a soft rustling sound. Sunyangsi stood at the door and suddenly thought of me. Back when I had just arrived, she didn't even want to see the so-called arranged marriage partner, Emmy, so she often found excuses to stay out, frequently not coming home at night. But no matter when she returned, she would always see me in the living room, quietly waiting for her to come home. I would always wake up at the slightest movement. She never liked me at all. Even seeing me like that, she wouldn't spare me a glance, and would go straight to her room. Yet I did this for many years. Until one day she finally paused for me, and even covered me with a blanket. When did everything start to change? It seemed to be after Lu Zhao returned, because she often went to handle things for him. She gradually came home less and less. Once, Lu Zhao said he wanted to meet the children, so she brought them along. It seemed from that time on, they had more and more contact with him, and most of the time, they would spend it with Lu Zhao. It wasn't that I never questioned it. You are my wife. Zhao Yan and Zhao Zhuan are my children, so why do you go care for someone else every day? But at that time, her heart was only with Lu Zhao, who had just returned. Hearing my questioning, she found me even more unreasonable, and coldly said, "Have you forgotten? If not for you interfering, he should have been the man of this house." I stood there, looking at her with indescribable disappointment. After that, I never brought it up again, as if that conversation had never happened. She felt satisfied, thinking I was quite sensible. With that thought, she unconsciously pushed open the children's room. Song Yan and Song Zhuan were sleeping soundly, their little heads leaning against each other. In the photo frame by the bed was a picture of them with Lu Zhao, smiling brightly. My photo had been removed at some point. Looking at the place where my photo once hung, now empty. For some reason, she felt a sense of emptiness too. She didn't return to the master bedroom, but went alone to the guest room. The moonlight streamed in coldly through the window. Sunyangsi took out a bottle of whiskey from the cabinet. She took a direct swig from the bottle, The burning liquid scorched her throat, but couldn't extinguish the inexplicable restlessness in her heart. After that day, Su Nyanxi often used business trips as an excuse, and gradually returned home less and less. With her rarely at home, Lu Zhao felt even more at ease, spending his days either at the gym or playing games. Song Yan and Song Zhuan, without anyone to take them to and from school. Lu Zhao, trying to please them, would often secretly excuse them from school and take them out to play. The two children followed his lead and stopped going to school altogether, skipping classes and staying out all day. When Lu Zhao found out, he didn't take it seriously at all. The housekeeper called him sir. The young master and young miss have been skipping classes lately. The teacher has already called home, saying they hope you and Miss Su can discipline the children more. They don't listen to us servants at all. Could you come back and talk to them? At least get them to go to school. Lu Zhao leaned lazily against the sofa. All right, I got it. I'll handle it later. No need to tell Nyanxi about this. She's already busy enough with work. I don't want to trouble her. The call ended. A friend beside him teased, no way. You're actually going to deal with those two burdens? It's great that you married a rich woman, but having those two kids around is such a hassle. Lu Zhao yawned lazily, a calculating gleam in his eyes. Who said I was going to manage them? I'd rather they turn out useless, so they won't compete with my future children for inheritance. As he spoke, he dialed the homeroom teacher of Song Yan and Song Zhuan. Teacher, our kids have some family matters to deal with recently. If they don't come to school, you don't need to worry too much. You know our family situation. They don't need to worry too much about school. Also, their mother has been very busy lately. If there's anything, just contact me directly. Don't tell her about it. After hanging up, he finally felt at ease and quickly put the matter out of his mind. That evening, he unexpectedly returned home from the gym. The living room was in complete chaos from the children. When they saw him, the two children happily ran over. Uncle Zhaoyi, you're finally back. We missed you so much. But what they didn't expect was the usually gentle Lu Zhaoyi now looked extremely cold. He replied impatiently, got it? I still have things to do. You to play by yourselves. Song Yan thought he was still the same and would treat them kindly as before. He angrily threw his toy to the ground. No, uncle, play with us. But upon hearing this, Lu Zhaoyi's expression suddenly turned terrifying. The eyes that were once always gentle now held no warmth at all. What did you say? Who do you think you're shouting at? Do you know I'll soon marry your mother and become the new master of this house? Your mother never liked your useless father anyway. Soon enough, she'd grow tired of you too. The two children hugged each other tightly in fear, not daring to even breathe loudly, completely losing their previous arrogance. Good that you understand. Remember this. In this house from now on, everything must follow my orders. And if you dare shout at me again, don't blame me for being rude to you. After saying that, he gave the children one last warning glance and coldly turned upstairs. From then on, under Lu Zhaoyi's influence, the servants in the house gradually stopped taking the children seriously. They even gradually stopped preparing proper meals for them. They could only wait until Lu Zhaoyi finished eating to eat a few leftovers. The blazing sunlight scorched the golden decorations. The air conditioner in the Su family villa hummed. Song Yan and Song Zhuan lay on the game room carpet building Lego, occasionally sneaking glances at Lu Zhaoyi, who was adjusting his tie in front of the mirror. Song Zhuan spoke timidly, Uncle Zhaoyi, can we go eat ice cream? You promised. Last week, Mom bought you a new watch again. And you were so happy. You even nudged us while we were lying on the floor, saying you'd take us for ice cream. But Lu Zhaoyi didn't even turn around and said impatiently, can't you see I'm busy? Song Yan gathered his courage and said softly, but you said last week you'd take us. Lu Zhaoyi suddenly turned around, the tie wrinkling in his hand. So annoying. All you do is think about junk food. Look how skinny you've gotten. The two children shrank together in fear. Ever since their father left, they had never felt Uncle Zhao's care again. His once gentle and kind smile was gone, replaced by constant impatience and frowns, and harsh scolding. Tears welled up in Song Juan's eyes, but she didn't dare cry. The last time she cried, Uncle Zhao had pinched her hard, and even threatened that if she told Mom, he would throw away all her favorite toys. That day, Su Niangxi unusually said she would come home for dinner. When she got home that night, the two children were already asleep. Lu Zhaoi came forward in a bathrobe, a faint fresh scent lingering on him. His skin looked especially smooth under the light. He spoke softly. Finished with work at last? Finally willing to come home, Su Niangxi took off her coat. Before speaking, she said, "There were some issues with the merger recently. I'll be able to come home more often these days." She looked around and suddenly asked, "Where are the kids? Why haven't I seen them for so long?" Lu Zhaoi wrapped an arm around her waist. "They went to bed early. No need to worry. I've been taking very good care of them." Then he added casually, "Niangxi, there's a charity gala tomorrow. I need a matching watch. Could you?" Before he finished, Su Niangxi nodded absent-mindedly. "Go pick one yourself. Just use my black card." The next morning at breakfast, she finally saw the two children come down to eat. But what puzzled her was, Song Yan and Song Juan were unusually quiet. Looking closer, the two children seemed to have lost some weight. Su Niangxi put down her coffee cup and frowned. "What's wrong? Are you feeling unwell?" Hearing her question, Song Yan immediately shook his head nervously. "No." Lu Zhaoi walked out of the kitchen, holding a fruit plate, glanced at them, and smiled lightly. "Don't worry. The kids are fine." He bent down and casually ruffled Song Yan's hair, his tone extremely gentle, right? "Yan Yan." Song Yan stiffened and replied awkwardly, "Mm." Su Niangxi's phone suddenly rang. She glanced at the caller ID and stood up. "Work matters. I'm leaving first." After the door closed, Lu Zhaoi's smile instantly disappeared. He snatched the milk glass from Song Juan's hand and said impatiently, "Why are you drinking so slowly? Do you want to be late? Hurry up and eat. When your mom comes back in a few days, you'd better go to school properly. And don't cause any trouble. Or don't blame me for being harsh." The threat was very effective. Song Juan trembled in fear. She hurriedly stuffed bread into her mouth, but accidentally choked, her face turning bright red. Lu Zhaoi frowned in disgust and scolded, "Useless thing. So pathetic. Just like your father." In the office, Su Niangxi was handling work. The next moment, her phone vibrated. It was a call from the housekeeper. "Miss, the young master has a fever. 39 degrees. We're really worried something might happen." Su Niangxi frowned tightly and asked, "Did you call a doctor?" The housekeeper replied, "Yes, but Mr. Lu said there's no need to rush. He went out to attend a gathering." Su Niangxi's expression suddenly changed, her voice tinged with shock. "What? I'm going back immediately. Let the family doctor take a look first." When she rushed home in the rain, she saw Song Yan already flushed red with fever, his small body trembling constantly. The family doctor was giving him infer, his expression serious. "Ms. Su, the child has had a high fever for 4 hours. If it gets any later, it may lead to pneumonia. The child's constitution is already weak. Treatment should have been earlier." Su Niangxi felt her chest tighten. She remembered when Song Xian was around, he could notice even the slightest discomfort in the children. Often, without even using a thermometer, he could accurately judge their temperature. "Where's Lu Zhaoi? Why haven't I seen him?" The housekeeper hesitated, but finally said, "Mr. Lu said it was just a minor cold. He went to Mr. Wang's birthday banquet and couldn't refuse." Su Niangxi took out her phone and called Lu Zhaoi. It rang for a long time before being answered. The background was filled with noisy laughter and music. Lu Zhaoi's voice sounded slightly drunk and cheerful, as if he didn't take the matter seriously at all. "Niangxi, It was the first time Su Nyingxi spoke to him so coldly. Song Yan's fever is nearly 40 degrees. Where are you? Lu Zhaoyi's tone immediately turned flustered and aggrieved. I'll come back right away. I'm really sorry, Nyingxi. I thought it was just a normal cold. I'll head back now. Lu Zhaoyi rushed back, still wearing his suit from the banquet. He looked guilty. Nyingxi, I really didn't know Yanyan was this sick. Su Nyingxi looked at his refined appearance and the lingering smell of alcohol. A surge of irritation rose in her chest, but facing this face she once longed for day and night, she still softened. Let it go this time. Be more careful next time. Late at night, Song Yan's fever finally subsided. Su Nyingxi's phone rang again. It was an urgent call from her assistant. Ms. Su, something urgent has come up at the company. You need to handle it immediately. Su Nyingxi glanced at her sleeping son on the bed, hesitated for a moment, then said, Zhaoyi, take care of him for now. I'll be back after I'm done. Lu Zhaoyi's expression didn't change. Don't worry, I'll take good care of Yanyan. Su Nyingxi hurriedly left. But when she reached the hospital entrance, she realized her car keys were left in the ward. She turned back. Just as she reached the door, she heard Lu Zhaoyi's low voice from inside. You little brat. What are you pretending for? You made me leave the banquet early. Song Yan's weak, tearful voice came through. I'm sorry, Uncle Zhaoyi. I didn't mean to. Lu Zhaoyi's voice was cold and terrifying, without a trace of compassion. I'm warning you, don't act pitiful in front of your mom. If you dare say anything, I'll deal with you. Song Yan sobbed. I won't say anything. I'll be obedient, please don't hit me. Lu Zhaoyi said arrogantly, good, you know your place. Just like your useless father. Su Nyingxi, standing outside listening to everything, was shaken to the core. The image of the kind person she once loved collapsed completely in an instant. The door was suddenly kicked open. With a loud bang, Lu Zhaoyi turned back in shock. He met Su Nyingxi's furious gaze. Nyingxi, his face instantly turned pale. He stammered in panic, listen to my explanation. But Su Nyingxi had already strode forward and slapped him hard across the face. Lu Zhaoyi staggered and crashed into the wall. I never knew that behind my back. This is how you act as a good father. Today you dare hit him. Threaten him tomorrow. Will you climb over my head too? Get out. Su Nyingxi's voice was as cold as ice. Today, take all your things and get out of the Su family home. I don't want to see you again. Lu Zhaoyi hurriedly scrambled to his feet and said anxiously, Nyingxi, I was just too worried. I really love these children. I'll treat them well from now on. Su Nyingxi sneered. So beating and threatening is your love. She turned toward Song Yan on the bed. The child had already curled up in fear, his little face covered in tears. Su Nyingxi felt as if her heart were being torn apart. How blind had she been, not to notice the fear her children had been living in. Song Yan timidly reached out, his eyes filled with fear. Mom, I was wrong. I'll listen to Uncle. Please don't abandon me. Su Nyingxi knelt on one knee beside the bed and tightly held her son's burning hand. It's not your fault. Mom was wrong. She turned to look at Lu Zhaoyi. The disappointment and disgust in her eyes made him unconsciously step back. I never thought you were this kind of person. Lu Zhaoyi tried to argue further, but Su Nyingxi had already pressed the call bell. Security, please escort this man out immediately. When Lu Zhaoyi's shouting finally faded at the end of the corridor, Su Nyingxi sat down tiredly beside the bed. Song Yan tugged at her sleeve carefully and sobbed pitifully, Mom, I miss Dad. Will you bring him back? Su Nyingxi's throat tightened. She thought of the resolute figure when I left, and of the indifference and hurt she had once given me. A dull pain spread through her chest. Song Zhuan had woken up at some point, rubbing her eyes as she walked over. Mom, I miss Dad too. When will Dad come back? Su Nyingxi pulled the two children into her arms, not knowing how to comfort them, only feeling an indescribable bitterness in her heart. 2 days later, Song Yan finally recovered and was discharged at the Su family residence. In the living room, a pile of Lu Zhaoyi's belongings was stacked. And Lu Xiaoyi tightly grabbed Su Niangxi's hand. Niangxi, you can't treat me like this. We've known each other for 20 years. You're going to do this over such a small matter. Su Niangxi suddenly shook off his hand, her gaze cold as ice. A small matter? Abusing my children is a small matter. She took out her phone and played a surveillance video. In the footage, Lu Xiaoyi was viciously pinching Song Zhuan's thigh. The little girl cried in pain but didn't dare make a sound. She swiped to another clip. It showed Lu Xiaoyi pouring sleeping pills into the children's milk. I never imagined that just to make them sleep early. So, you could go to parties. You'd actually drug them. Lu Xiaoyi's face turned deathly pale. You were spying on me. Did you stop trusting me long ago? Su Niangxi's voice was icy. I was monitoring my home. Just then, a maid suddenly rushed out and said in a trembling voice, Miss, I have something to say. She pointed at Lu Xiaoyi with a shaking hand, her eyes full of undisguised disgust. Ever since he first came to this house, he's been sowing discord between Sir and the children. Lu Xiaoyi shrieked, You're talking nonsense. Summoning her courage, she said, I'm not lying. When Sir wasn't around, he always encouraged the children to buy all kinds of snacks and toys, and even taught them to speak badly of Sir. I heard him with my own ears telling the young master, Your dad doesn't let you eat candy because he doesn't love you. He also said, only if the young master and young miss found a way to drive their dad away could they truly be together. So the very next day, the young master personally pushed her down the stairs. Su Niangxi's expression grew darker and darker. She turned to the housekeeper and said, Bring up the surveillance footage from that moment. When the video played on the big screen, the entire living room fell silent. In the footage, the two children wore malicious smiles as they pushed me down the stairs. And then Lu Xiaoyi, who followed Su Niangxi in, saw everything. Yet the smug, delighted smile on his face couldn't be hidden. Song Zhuan suddenly rushed down the stairs and threw herself into her arms, crying, Mom, we were wrong. We want Dad to come back. Song Yin followed behind, his little face covered in tears. Mom, Uncle said Dad doesn't want us anymore. Is that true? Lu Xiaoyi sneered, Of course it's true. He already abandoned you. And now, who knows which woman he's holding? Su Niangxi, you still don't know, do you? That day, what you signed wasn't any property agreement. It was the divorce agreement he personally gave you. You two have long had nothing to do with each other. You were the one who drove him away. Another loud slap rang out, cutting off his vicious words. Fury burned in Su Niangxi's eyes like never before. She ordered the housekeeper, throw all his belongings out. He stared in disbelief with wide eyes. Su Niangxi, have you lost your mind for that old man? Su Niangxi stood there and snapped, Shut up. If you say one more word, I'll make sure you can't survive in Jingcheng. The servants moved quickly and threw Lu Xiaoyi's suitcases out the front door one by one, like a pile of messy trash. Lu Xiaoyi stood at the doorway, shouting hysterically, You'll regret this. Do you think Song Xin will still want you? He got sick of you a long time ago. The front door slammed shut in his face, cutting off all the filthy curses. The living room suddenly became frighteningly quiet. Su Niangxi slowly crouched down and pulled the two children into her arms. Their bodies were trembling, and their tears soaked her clothes. After the servants took the children upstairs, Su Niangxi finally let herself collapse onto the sofa. She took out her phone and called her assistant, saying in a deep voice, Find Song Shen's whereabouts immediately. After hanging up, Su Niangxi's gaze fell on the family portrait on the wall. It had been taken 3 years ago. I was standing at the very edge, my smile so forced. But at the time, her eyes had no room for me at all. She hadn't even noticed my expression. Thinking back now, perhaps it was because of her repeated neglect that I finally gave up on them completely. The housekeeper softly interrupted her thoughts. Miss, dinner is ready. Should I call the young master and young miss down? Su Niangxi nodded. Today, I'll eat with them, in the dining room. Song Yan and Song Zhuan ate listlessly. They no longer had their usual liveliness. The two children who had once been so rosy and well-fed now even had sharply pointed chins. Songjuan suddenly asked softly, "Mom, I miss Dad. Where exactly did he go? Why hasn't he come back for so long? Will he still forgive us?" Su Nayangxi's hand paused. Then she finally nodded, firmly, "No matter what, he is still your father. He loved you the most before. He will definitely forgive you." Late at night, Su Nayangxi stood before the floor-to-ceiling window in the study, her fingers tapping against the redwood desk. The photos just delivered by the assistant were scattered across the desk, each one piercing into her eyes like a blade. Her voice was frighteningly low. "Is it really him?" The assistant wiped the sweat from his forehead. "Absolutely. Sir opened a bookstore in Yuncheng. These were taken last week." In the photo, I stood at the entrance of a bookstore called Experiment. Sunlight filtered through the plane tree leaves, casting mottled shadows across me. I was wearing a simple linen shirt, my hair slightly shorter than before. Bending down, speaking to a 5 or 6-year-old girl. There was a softness in my eyes she hadn't seen in a long time. What hurt the most was the woman standing beside me. Petite in figure, her gentle gaze resting on me. She held the little girl in her arms. The three of us standing together looked perfectly harmonious. So harmonious it was suffocating. Su Nayangxi pressed her fingers hard against the photo. "Standing beside him?" The assistant immediately replied, "She seems to be a senior from university. Her name is Su Zhuwei. The little girl with her is her niece." They only knew each other back in college. This time they just happened to meet again in Yuncheng. But Sir seems to like that little girl very much. He often spends time playing with her, and Su Zhuwei usually accompanies them. A strange bitterness surged in Su Nayangxi's chest. She raised her hand to stop him. "Enough. No need to say more. How dare Songxian? How dare he look at another woman like that?" That was clearly a tenderness that belonged only to him. At that moment, the study door was suddenly pushed open. Songjuan and Song Yan ran in barefoot, their little faces still streaked with tears. Songjuan threw herself at her legs. "Mom. Wang Ma said they found Dad." "Really?" Su Nayangxi bent down and picked up her daughter, her gaze sweeping over my smiling eyes in the photo. 3 months. I hadn't contacted the children even once. Yet in a foreign place, I could smile so happily at someone else's child. Song Yan tugged at her skirt. "Can we go find Dad? We miss him." Su Nayangxi looked at the photo of the three of us in harmony, and suddenly let out a cold laugh, then said to her assistant, "Prepare the plane." Then she gently wiped the tears from Songjuan's face. "We're going to bring Dad home." She absolutely didn't believe I truly liked that woman. It must be just to provoke her. After all, I had loved her so much before. Loved her enough to endure 6 years of indifference. As long as she came in person, with the 2 children, I would definitely soften. Meanwhile, in Yuncheng, in a pottery studio, I was focused on shaping a lump of clay. Little Tiantian leaned on the work table beside me, proudly holding up a crooked little figure. "Uncle, look at the little rabbit I made." I leaned closer to take a look, then suddenly reached out and dabbed a bit of clay on her nose. "It really is a little rabbit. Shouldn't a rabbit have a round nose?" Tiantian burst into laughter and grabbed a handful of clay to retaliate. The two of us ended up playing around together. At that moment, Su Zhuwei walked over with 3 cups of hot tea, her face also splashed with a bit of clay. She shook her head helplessly, but couldn't hide the smile at the corner of her lips. "You two have turned this place into a battlefield." She took out a handkerchief and naturally wiped the clay off my cheek. Realizing how close we were, my face couldn't help but flush slightly. Tiantian watched this scene with a grin, suddenly putting down the clay and blinking her big eyes at me. "Uncle, I'm so happy. If only I could always be with Annie. And you." My heart stirred. I raised my head and met Su Zhuwei's gentle gaze. There was a cautious expectation in her eyes that made my heart tremble. But when I thought of Su Nayangxi and those 2 children, my gaze dimmed again. And I didn't speak for a long time. Su Zhuwei pushed the small bowl she had shaped toward her niece and said, "Tiantian, do you like this?" Qianshan's attention was indeed drawn away, and she forgot the earlier question. My fingers unconsciously traced the rough surface of the clay. A warmth rose in my chest, yet it was mixed with an indescribable bitterness. In the restroom, I looked at myself in the mirror. 3 months had passed. The dark circles under my eyes had faded, and my lips were no longer tense. The wounds on my body had also faded a lot. The morning sunlight and breeze seemed to have truly healed some of my invisible wounds. But when Tianyan said stay together forever, what flashed before my eyes were Song Yan and Song Zhuan. Those 2 children I once devoted all my effort to raise, yet who pushed me down the stairs? Could those past events really be forgotten? Sunyaxi's private jet landed at Yuncheng Airport that very day. The 2 children were carried down by bodyguards. Song Zhuan's eyes shimmered with both anticipation and unease. She lifted her little face and asked Mom, "Will we really get to see Dad?" Sunyaxi straightened her skirt and said in a steady, firm voice, "Of course. Dad will definitely be very happy to see you." The assistant hurried over and handed over a file. "Ms. Su, we've confirmed his location. He is at a pottery studio in the east of the city with those 2 people." Attached to the file was a candid photo. I was crouching in front of a little girl, gently wiping the mud off her face. Beside me stood a woman, watching us with a smile. Sunlight streamed through the glass window onto the 3 of us. The scene warm yet painfully dazzling. Sunyaxi's fingers tightened unconsciously, crumpling the edge of the photo. The way that woman looked at me was all too familiar to her. That was a kind of tenderness she had never given her. She said coldly, "Prepare the car. We're going there now." Along the way, Song Yan and Song Zhuan were unusually quiet. They pressed against the car window, looking at the unfamiliar city scenery, their small hands clutching the corners of their clothes nervously. Sunyaxi noticed that the 2 children had deliberately worn the clothes I bought them last year. Though they were already a bit small, Song Yan's young face was filled with unease. He suddenly asked softly, "Mom, do you think Dad will forgive us?" Sunyaxi didn't answer immediately. She thought of the surveillance footage, of me being pushed down the stairs in pain, and of my resolute back when I left. "Yes," she finally said, not knowing whether she was comforting them or herself. "Dad loves you the most. How could he abandon you?" The car stopped in front of a pottery studio. Through the floor-to-ceiling window, Sunyaxi spotted me at a glance. I was wearing a simple white t-shirt and jeans, focused on shaping a piece of clay. The little girl named Tianyan suddenly grabbed a handful of clay and playfully smeared it on my face. To Sunyaxi's surprise, I didn't get angry at all. Instead, I laughed and tried to smear it back. I smiled so happily, completely carefree. It was a smile Sunyaxi hadn't seen in a long time. Beside her, Song Zhuan kept watching, then suddenly broke free from the bodyguard's hand and ran toward the pottery studio. She ran toward the pottery studio. Dad, Sunyaxi didn't have time to stop her and could only hurry after her. The moment the door was pushed open, the wind chimes rang crisply. Hearing the sound, I looked up. The smile froze on my face. "Zhuang?" My gaze moved past the child and landed on Sunyaxi. "Why are you here? How did you find me?" Tianyan looked curiously at the strangers who had suddenly barged in and instinctively hid behind me. Su Zhiwei stood up, quietly stepping in front of us protectively. Song Yan also ran in and hugged my leg tightly, his eyes filled with tears. "Dad, we missed you so much these days. Have you been with these 2 people? Was it all for them?" He looked at Tianyan with hostility, staring at her with resentment, frightening Tianyan into clutching my clothes tightly. I stood frozen, my hands suspended in midair, unsure whether I should hug them back. But when I met Song Yan's gaze, I suddenly snapped back to reality, my expression turning cold. I made no move to embrace them, instead stepping back slightly. My voice was soft, yet sharp as a blade. "What are you doing here?" Sunyaxi stepped forward, her gaze sweeping over Su Zhiwei, before settling on my face. "Xian, we're here to take you home. Stop this now. You've punished us enough. The kids know they were wrong. Come back with us." The pottery studio suddenly fell into a tense silence. Other customers and staff stopped what they were doing, watching the scene curiously. I let out a cold laugh. Which home? Songjuan tugged at my hand. Dad. Please come back with us. We won't make you angry anymore. Songyan hurriedly added, yeah. Dad, we drove Uncle Zhaoyi away. Mom said from now on you'll be our only dad. My expression shifted slightly. I crouched down to meet their eyes. I won't go back with you. Because not everything can be solved with an apology. Tears streamed down Songjuan's face. Why, Dad? Do you not love us anymore? That question was like a blunt knife, piercing straight into my heart. I opened my mouth and said with a bitter smile, pushing me down the stairs. Framing me for feeding you mangoes. Weren't those things done by your own hands? Not wanting me as your father, and only wanting Lu Zhaoyi to be your dad. Those words, didn't you say them yourselves? I admit, I may not be a perfect father, but I've always done my best to take care of you, to love you. I just don't understand how it all ended like this. The two children flushed red, too ashamed to say a word. But Songyan still refused to give up and pleaded again, Dad. We were childish before. I know we were wrong now. Please forgive us, okay? Before I could respond, Tianyan suddenly asked timidly, Uncle. Are you leaving? Su Zhiwei bent down and picked up her niece, softly comforting her. Tianyan, don't be afraid. Uncle won't abandon you, no matter where he chooses to go. We should respect his decision. And even if he doesn't stay here, he'll still come visit you often. Seeing this scene, anger flared in Su Niangxi's chest. This unfamiliar woman, what right did she have to hold a child beside me? As if they were the real family. She stepped forward, her voice cold. Song Xin. Enough is enough. The children need you. As their father. Don't you want to raise your own children anymore? Do you really want to raise someone else's child instead? I stood up, a cold glint flashing in my eyes, one Su Niangxi had never seen before. Am I the one being unreasonable? Do they need me? When they pushed me down the stairs? Did they need me? When they said in front of everyone that they hated me? Did they need me? When they called Lu Zhaoyi dad? Did they need me? Each question landed like a slap, leaving Su Niangxi speechless. The two children cried even harder, clutching tightly at my clothes. Dad, we were wrong. Songjuan sobbed uncontrollably. We'll only love you from now on. We'll never hurt you again. My eyes turned red, but my resolve did not waver. Su Zhiwei silently handed me a tissue. That simple gesture completely enraged Su Niangxi. She questioned coldly, who do you think you are? What right do you have to interfere in our family matters? Su Zhiwei replied calmly, I am Song Xian's friend. As for the right, she glanced at the two tearful children. I think those who hurt him have no right to question me. Just as the tension reached its peak, Tianyan suddenly said softly, Uncle, we haven't finished the bowl yet. At those words, I finally made up my mind. Taking a deep breath, I turned to Su Niangxi and said, please take the children and leave. I'll say it again. There's nothing left between us to talk about. The two children clung tightly to my legs, screaming at the same time, Dad, please, don't leave us. The scene fell into chaos. The studio owner hesitated about calling the police, while other customers took out their phones to film. I stood at the center of the storm, my face pale as paper. Su Niangxi looked at my trembling hands. She suddenly realized she had made a fatal mistake. She thought bringing the children would move me. But she forgot to consider my feelings. Those wounds could not be erased with a single apology. Like shattered porcelain. No matter how you mend it, cracks remain. She spoke with difficulty. Xiaoyan. Xiaoxuan, let's go back first. Songyan cried stubbornly, clutching my clothes tightly, refusing to let go. We want Dad. You said you would bring Dad today and go home with us. You said it yourself. I closed my eyes. A tear slipped from the corner of my eye. Su Zhiwei silently guided Qianxin's small hand. The little girl immediately held onto my fingers tightly, as if that could give me strength. My voice was cold as ice. Su Niangxi, take them away. I've already said it. I cannot forgive what you did before. If you came for child support, I can transfer the money without hesitation. As for anything else, don't bring it up again. If you come again, I won't hesitate to call the police. These words struck like a heavy blow, completely shattering Sunyanshi's confidence. She had thought I would soften, that I would return with her for the children's sake. But she didn't expect my determination to leave was so firm. She bent down and forcibly picked up the two children, ignoring their crying and struggling, and strode toward the door. Before pushing it open to leave, she turned back for one last look at me. I was crouching on the ground, comforting Tianyan. Suzhui stood beside us. The three figures looked so close, so happy. Inside the studio, everything had quieted down. I mechanically kneaded the clay in my hands, my fingers turning pale from the force. Tianyan sat quietly beside me, glancing at me with concern from time to time. The little girl finally couldn't hold back and said, "Uncle, are you very sad?" My hands paused. I forced a smile. "No." "Tianyan, don't worry about me. Go on making your little bowl." Suzhui silently handed me a cup of warm water and gently placed it beside me. "Do you want to take a break?" I shook my head. Song Yan and Song Zhuan's tearful eyes kept flashing in my mind, making my chest feel heavy. I said softly, "They looked thinner." Suzhui didn't respond, just quietly stayed by my side. Little Tiantian thought for a moment, then suddenly suggested, "Annie, let's make a gift for Uncle." Suzhui gently rubbed her niece's head. "Sure. What do you want to make?" Tiantian said excitedly. "A little house, so Uncle can have a new home." That innocent remark made my nose sting. I looked at the little girl seriously shaping the clay, and Suzhui guiding her attentively, and suddenly realized that without noticing, these two had already become an important part of my life. I softly asked Tianyan, "Why do you want to make me a house?" The little girl looked up, her big eyes clear and bright. "Because Uncle is unhappy, and he said home should be a place that makes people happy. I want to make Uncle happy." My eyes reddened again. Suzhui lowered her head a little awkwardly, the tips of her ears turning slightly red. "Kids say whatever comes to mind." "Xian, don't be sad." I suddenly said, "Thank you. I'm very happy to have met you." Tianyan immediately threw herself into my arms, her little hands tightly wrapping around my neck. "Uncle, can we stay together forever? Like a family?" Suzhui's hand froze midair. The clay slipped from her fingers. Her eyes met mine, and both of us blushed. She softly scolded Tianyan. "Don't say that. You'll put pressure on Uncle." I smiled gently. "It's okay." My gaze toward Suzhui was soft yet firm. "I'm honored to become a part of your lives." The two pairs of eyes in front of me lit up at once, like two sets of sparkling stars. I looked at the one big and one small figure before me, and couldn't help but smile. The heaviness in my chest was gradually replaced by a new feeling, a sense of peace I hadn't felt in a long time. Recently, it had rained a lot in Yuncheng. Even the bookstore's business had become much quieter. But for several days in a row, a Maybach had been parked at the entrance, its owner stubbornly waiting outside, never leaving. Tiantian ran over happily, holding up a drawing. "Uncle, look. My drawing." But when she saw my expression, she suddenly stopped and asked cautiously, "Uncle, are you unhappy again?" I forced a smile but didn't answer, instead taking the drawing. "It's really good." "Is this a bunny?" Tianyan nodded vigorously, then turned her little hand, pointing outside the window. "Is it because those bad people came again that you're sad, Uncle?" Suzhui walked out from behind the bookshelf, holding a steaming cup of flower tea. Her gaze swept toward the luxury car that had been parked for a week, and she asked softly, "Should we call the police?" Through the rain, two small figures could be seen faintly, pressed against the car window, staring longingly toward the bookstore. I shook my head and said coldly, "They'll give up eventually." The rain grew heavier. Suddenly, the car door across the street flew open. Song Zhuan stumbled toward the bookstore. The rain soaked her skirt and little shoes. But she didn't care at all. She just stubbornly pounded on the glass door. Crying out, "Dad, please open the door. I know you're inside. Dad, you saw us. Why are you ignoring me and my brother? Do you really not want us anymore?" My fingers clenched the curtain tightly. My knuckles turning white, Sujue silently stepped beside me, her palm gently resting over my trembling hand. My gaze suddenly hardened. One last time. This time, I'll make a clean break with them. Then I took out my phone, found the number that had long been blocked, and sent a message. "Cafe, see you there." I chose a seat by the window and quietly waited for the three of them. Before long, Sunayangsi walked in with the two children. She was rarely not wearing a business suit today. Just a simple white dress, wrinkled against her body, dark circles obvious under her eyes. The two children were also in dirty clothes, looking thinner than before, utterly disheveled. The moment Songjuan saw me, she rushed over. "Dad," but I gently avoided her. I pointed to the chair opposite. My voice, a naturally calm "Sit." Sunayangsi's eyes flickered, and she said with difficulty, "Xian, the kids haven't been doing well these days. They were already weak. And without your care." I cut her off. "I know." I casually took out a craft paper envelope from my bag. "This is the growth journal I kept for them, from birth until now. Everything you need to know to take care of them is inside. There's also their allergy list, medication records. They're not little anymore. I believe you can take care of them." Sunayangsi's face turned pale instantly, her voice trembling. "What do you mean?" "I don't want these, Xian. Don't you understand? We just want you back." I didn't look at her. I just lowered my head and let out a mocking laugh. I rolled up my left sleeve, revealing a vicious scar. My tone was calm. "Remember this. It was from when Song Yan pushed me down the stairs. The shattered glass cut me. That night, I got a full 12 stitches at the hospital. And at that time, you and Lu Zhaoyi were happily together at home, like a loving family." Song Yan's face instantly lost all color, his lips trembling. "Dad, I didn't mean to." I gently shook my head and lifted my pant leg again, revealing the ugly scar on my leg. A huge centipede-like scar, stretching across my leg. This was from that time, when I was trapped in the elevator with Lu Zhaoyi. You said he still had to play the piano, so you abandoned me without hesitation. My voice was soft, yet as sharp as a blade. "Just a little more, just a little. I might have lost this leg." Then my gaze shifted to Sunayangsi, filled with undisguised mockery. "Every one of you says it wasn't intentional. Just like when you deliberately framed me for feeding you mangoes, and said in front of everyone that you hated me. But what about me? Do all the injuries I suffered just get ignored? Because if you're light, we didn't mean it." Songjuan suddenly burst into tears and rushed forward, trying to grab my arm. "But we know we were wrong now. Dad, please come back. We won't do that anymore." I looked at my daughter crying her heart out. Yet my heart was strangely calm. I truly loved you very much. When Songjuan was born prematurely, she weighed only 2.4 kilograms. I stayed by the incubator for 7 days and 7 nights. When Song Yan was bullied at school, whatever bond we had before is already over. I came today to tell you this. I stood up and tucked the coffee money under the cup, then said word by word, "I'm not going back. It's not to punish you. It's just because I already have a brand new life of my own. I don't want to stay trapped in the mud of the past anymore, or keep getting tangled up with you for nothing." After saying that, I turned and walked out without hesitation. Songjuan's heartbroken cries rang out behind me. "Dad, please don't abandon us." But my steps did not falter in the slightest. I pushed open the cafe door. Across the street, Sujue was standing by the car with Tinian, waiting for me. The moment the little girl saw me, She immediately broke free from her aunt's hand and ran toward me. Uncle, Tiny, and threw herself into my arms, her little hands nervously touching my face. Are you okay? Did they bully you? I bent down and picked up the little girl, then kissed her soft cheek. Uncle is fine. Let's go home. Sujue walked over and asked nothing. She only gently took my arm. The three of us walking toward the car looked so harmonious in the sunlight. Inside the cafe, Songjuan's crying gradually quieted down. Sunayangsi stared blankly out the window. Songyin tugged at her sleeve, his voice filled with a fear she had never heard before. Does Dad really not want us anymore? Sunayangsi did not answer. The certainty she had felt before coming here was now completely gone. This time, it seemed they had truly lost me for good. I stood on the terrace, watching Tiantian watering the flower beds in the yard. The little girl was wearing a light yellow dress, humming an off-key nursery rhyme, and looked extremely happy. A pair of warm hands wrapped around me from behind. Su Jiwei's chin gently rested against my back. What are you thinking about? She still carried the faint scent of hospital disinfectant. Clearly, just having gotten off work, I was just thinking, before I even turned around. I couldn't help but smile. I was thinking about when we first met, when you brought Tiny in to buy picture books. Su Jiwei chuckled softly, her eyes full of tenderness. Back then, I thought, how could this junior of mine, after so long, still be this handsome? I laughed lightly. You're quite the smooth talker. Our laughter caught Chanshin's attention in the yard. The little girl dropped the watering can and ran upstairs like a little butterfly. Annie, uncle, what are you whispering about? Su Jiwei bent down and picked up her niece and kissed her mud-stained cheek. I was asking your uncle whether he'd like to stay with us forever. Jianshin's eyes lit up instantly, her little hands tightly grabbing my clothes. Really? Uncle, will you stay with us forever? My heart softened as if soaked in warm water. I took Tianyan into my arms and nodded under her expectant gaze. If Tianyan wants that. Tianyan cheered and wrapped her arms around my neck. I do. I do. Then she turned to Sujue. Annie, hurry and put a ring on Uncle, just like in the TV shows. My ears turned slightly red. I took out a small red velvet box from my pocket and let her put the ring on me. Our wedding was set for 3 months later. On the wedding day, the weather was exceptionally bright. Sujue wore a simple white wedding dress, holding wild flowers picked by Tianyan, walking toward me amid everyone's blessings. When the priest declared us officially husband and wife, Tianyan eagerly threw herself into my arms and called out brightly, Uncle-in-law. Behind the crowd of guests stood 3 lonely figures, 1 adult and 2 children. Sujue squeezed my hand and gently said, I'll handle it. I took a deep breath. No, I'll go myself. As the door opened, Songjuan rushed over. Dad, you look so handsome today. I stepped back, avoiding her embrace, and said coldly, what are you doing here? Sunayangsi's gaze fell on the wedding behind me, her eyes filled with nostalgia and reluctance. We mean no harm. We just want to bless you. My voice was calm. Not needed. Please leave. Sunayangsi's face instantly turned pale. She grabbed the 2 crying children, her eyes filled with despair. Xiaoyuan, Xiao Xuan, let's go. Songjuan broke free from her mother's hand and rushed forward, hugging my leg, crying hysterically, Dad, please look at me. Look at me. I lowered my head and looked at the daughter I once cherished. I didn't bend down. I just gently removed her hands. Goodbye. Songjuan and Songyan, don't come looking for me again. Go live your new lives. I'm going to have my own new life too. As I turned, I heard Sunayangsi's suppressed sobs behind me and the children's heart-wrenching cries. But when I walked back into the wedding and saw Tiantian running toward me with a flower basket and Sujue smiling at me in the sunlight, those sounds became distant and blurred. Later, I heard from the old housekeeper that the Su family was not doing well. After Lu Zhaoyi was driven away, the household fell into chaos. Sunayangsi was busy with work, and the 2 children were sent to boarding school, their personalities growing more difficult. They once tried to come to Yuncheng to find me, but were stopped outside the residential area. Sometimes I would dream of the past. Dream of Sumi burning with fever, and me staying up all night to take care of her. Dream of the first time the two children called me dad, and their smiling faces back then when I woke up. Suzhui would always notice immediately and gently comfort me. Once, she insisted on asking, Xin, do you regret it? I looked at the yard, where Tianyan was playing with two stray cats, and shook my head. Life now is very happy. The future is bright. I won't look back anymore. At that moment, Tianyan ran over holding the kittens, with bits of grass on her face, asking excitedly, Uncle, they're so cute. Can we adopt them? I gently stroked Qianshen's sweat-covered little face, and said with a smile, of course. This is our home. You decide. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, falling on the three of us, casting dappled shadows. The darkness that once shrouded me would never affect me again.